All right. This is what we do on a Wednesday night. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, striking up the live stream. This is what we do on Wednesday night, even when it's Halloween night. So Cam has already let us know that if the trick-or-treaters come by, he's going to go take care of business. So we can afford him that much for taking out his Halloween night for us. If I do, I'm on the second deck here, so they can only like throw stuff up at my window, I guess.
Oh, no.
I'm well prepared.
I'm not going to, I don't have any candy or anything. So, and I actually don't even have my light on at the front door, but there's been a couple groups who came by anyway. So I was just saying, if they're knocking or anything, just kind of ignore that. But I'll be here.
I may get the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Fortunately, I'm down at the end of a road, so cul-de-sac. So I get a little less attention than others. And I'm at kind of the top of the hill, top of the mountain. So it takes a climb to get up here.
No, I'm right at the corner of a T intersection, so like I have two major streets like right there at the corner. So
your prime territory.
I mean, not major streets, but major in our neighborhood. So
sure.
Yeah.
All right. Want to remind everyone that we're here every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock Eastern time talking about college football with the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the nation. Also here all day Saturday with instant analysis. You can check us out at SG1 Sports. They have offered and need me to get over there on Fridays and Sundays, which is a good time. Same deal, live stream at noon Eastern time on Friday, and then the big weekend wrap up at 11 a.m. Eastern time on Sunday. All right, let's talk Miami. We got Cam Underwood on the line from State of the U, and boy, we expect it to be in better condition at this point, Cam. This Coastal Division race is, needless to say, up for grabs.
Yeah, and Miami's not even in the driver's seat of that competition, as it were. So, yeah, it's been rough for a couple of weeks here. So, and I mean, hopefully things change, but absent some changes, I don't see where things are going to change. I mean, Mark Richt can talk about execution needing to get better and things like that, but when you keep playing players who are making mistakes, playing players who don't have the athletic ability that you need, especially at key positions like quarterback. It's just hard to believe that things are going to get better. I mean, Bud Elliott, one of my SB Nation colleagues, he wrote a piece before the year about over/under bets based on regular season win totals. And there's some teams who are over already, and there's some teams that are under already by the number of losses they have, and Miami being one of those teams, along with who else is in that boat? Actually,
TCU comes to mind. I think TCU's 3-5 right now.
Yeah, I think that they're under also. I know. Oh, here it is. Yeah, so Louisville is already under their year win total or win loss. Miami, USC, Washington, and Wisconsin. So all of those teams you talk about having been, underachieving already. And I mean, like I said, based upon their preseason win totals, they're already under. Like they've lost more games than the betting line would have said. So if you bet the under on, those 5 teams I just named, awesome, good for you. You got some money. But, for those of us who, follow and root for those teams, that's not a good thing. And Miami's in that kind of spot. Miami already has a couple ACC losses back to back, which is bad. And so Virginia and Pittsburgh, they are in the driver's seat of the Coastal Division. I think they have a game coming up either this week or next, but that's like going to put one team in first place. And I mean, either team can control their destiny. If they win out, then they win the division. And notice how neither name I just said was Miami. So yeah, this is going back and putting Miami in a situation that we've been in previous years. So if you're going back talking to Al Golden's time, or even talking about Mark Richt's first year 2 years ago, that's where Miami is in terms of this season, with being favored in every game. And we talked about that before the season. There's no reason that this should have happened. There's no reason Miami should have lost to Virginia or Boston College. And I know that those teams have scholarship players, and I know that, playing on the road is hard and blah, 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 blah. There's no reason Miami should have lost those games, period. And it just comes down to the fact that Miami's not doing what Miami needs to do. And I wrote that before the season, that, if Miami were to lose games, it was Miami beating themselves. And that's what we're doing. And Mark Richt continues to mortgage this season in the support of Malik Rozier, absent evidence of proper performance. And I'm not even going to say that everything is bad with Malik Rozier, because he started the Boston College game 9 for his first 11 with like 20 or 30 rushing yards and a touchdown in the first 2 drives. Yeah, the offense stalled on the first drive before Boston College scored. We came right back down and scored. So, things started well for Malik Rozier. But after that, he was like, what was it, like 10 for 25 or something for the rest of the game with 2 interceptions? That's not good enough. When you get shut out in the second half, and at the end of the third quarter, Miami is on the 9-yard line. You come into the fourth quarter, 1st and goal on the 9, and you don't score at all. 0 points. That's unacceptable. That's not good enough. So Miami is in a place, and I don't like being here. I don't like losing. Like, I really hate losing. And from a blogging perspective, like, I was blogging and then took over as managing editor through like Al Golden's last year at Miami. Like, I've been here, not just in the stands, but like on the internet, like tweeting and writing and running a website and things like that. And I desired those times to be behind us, because let me tell you, friends, it is hard to come up with content when you have a very, very bad team. And this is where Miami is going. So, yeah, I mean, there is the potential for a 3-way tie in the Coastal Division, where Miami could go to the ACC championship game. There's a lot of things that need to happen. But the very first part of any kind of scenario for Miami to even have a shot at getting to the ACC championship game is Miami needs to win all the rest of the games. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen, because this team is not performing to the level that it needs to and is wasting a very good championship caliber defense by intentionally fielding an atrocious offense. And it is unacceptable. I do not like it. And that's where we are.
So many ways to go here. The first thing I'm going to set everyone up on, as we have tons of people now getting into the chat room and online here, is that so I'm going to be here for a couple hours. We're going to talk about, as I reviewed it, the Week 10 schedule. This is the best schedule of college football. It is unbelievable how many conference and playoff impactful games there are this week. So we'll get to all the games. We're bringing on more people, and DJ Durkin got fired at Maryland today as well. We're focused on Miami and Duke and Cam. Yeah. So Virginia and Pitt, that does not sound like a division leading type game in November, but that is the game, and that's this Friday. So I'm going to need to settle in and focus on that one. Man, when I looked at Miami preseason, I picked the Canes to go 10-2. And when I was pushed by people when they weren't good enough with 10-2, when they said, which 2 are they going to lose? I said, okay, I'm going probably Florida State, Boston College, or I'm going. I actually took off of Florida State because that game was at home. I went Boston College in Blacksburg at Virginia Tech. But now, yeah, all the games, if you took the names and the recruiting rankings and everything about the talent on the roster and just went by the way the teams are playing and looked at Miami's stretch run, they all seem like toss-ups.
Yeah, and that's emblematic of Miami underperforming. Like, that's why they are toss-ups, or at this point. Again, Miami has more talent than the teams that they're playing. Miami should be a better team. Miami has flashed. But then again, they flashed potential against, Group of 5 and FCS teams. Miami is 2-6 in their last 8 games against Power 5 competition. That's the last 3 games of this year. That's LSU, or of last year, excuse me. That's losing to LSU. That's beating Florida State. Awesome, great, good, glorious. And beating, who was that? North Carolina, who's abjectly terrible. So 2 of the worst teams in the conference are the only 2 FBS team or Power 5 teams, that Miami's beaten in the last 8 games. This is not a thing that has recently popped up. I spoke about this last year. There were issues, there were underlying problems that Miami, it seems to me that the Miami program and staff, and definitely the fans, overlooked intentionally, because by smoke and mirrors, Miami won 10 games in a row last year. But I was being very critical then and saying that luck is going to run out. These things are going to come back, and these offensive issues are going to be problematic. And that is what's been seen throughout the end of last year and then this year. And yeah, it's not good.
So, Kim, you alluded right off the top to making poor choices in regards to not playing the best players. And of course, you're talking quarterback, and you included quarterback. So this is one continues to boggle my mind is that it's not only based on a non-coach watching the games, and I've seen, take out Savannah State in about half against Toledo. I've seen pretty much everything else. And it's not necessarily just that N'Kosi Perry, sure, he's made his mistakes. He looked awful in the first half against Virginia. Not only does he look like the better player today, although it's arguable, but he's definitely got the most upside. And then number 3, he's the future quarterback. You're talking about a guy playing at so wouldn't you want to put your future in play on the field, but also build up his confidence and make him feel like you trust him?
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree that he's the quarterback of the future, honestly. Okay. Just because of the way that Mark Richt is treating him. You know what I'm saying? Like that. Yeah. I do believe he has more talent. I think that Jaron Williams obviously has more talent than Malik Rozier, but we're so deep in the season that if you wait, what is it, a week? 2 weeks, excuse me. If you wait 2 more games, then you can play Jaron Williams for the rest of the season and maintain his red shirt. That would be Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh, and a bowl game. Assuming that Miami does not get to the ACC championship game. If Miami does, then you have that 4th game thing where he could play in the ACC championship game or bowl game, but then it would be one or the other. So if you wait to play Jaron Williams, who's very talented, but you could see in the spring that the game was just a half step too fast for him. Yeah, but I mean, it continues to boggle my mind why and how Mark Richt is so singularly supportive of Malik Rozier. It just doesn't make sense. And I know that N'Kosi Perry had that video on social media of him holding money during the bye week when he went home to Ocala and whatever. Yeah, fine. Okay, cool. But I've said this in other places. 19-year-olds are stupid. I mean, if you think back, Mark, to when you were 19, if I think back to when I was 19 and a freshman at the University of Miami, I did stupid stuff. And I have a story I want to tell, but I shouldn't tell it, so I'm not going to. But there's a very specific thing that I did.
Clean version? No? Nothing? Okay.
I climbed on top of a building that I was not supposed to climb on top of. That was very precarious for me to get to the top of this building. Like, I could have lost my life doing what I did. I mean, it was very stupid. It was very unintelligent. And I did it multiple times because I was 19 and 19-year-olds are stupid. And N'Kosi Perry's 19 and you're stupid. Like 19-year-olds do 19-year-old stupid stuff. But then to not play him doesn't make sense to me. And then, but also at the same time, say that he's a member in good standing and he's not being punished and he's not being benched because of off the field things. So then if you're not talking about the off the field stuff, then it has to be the on the field stuff. But the on the field stuff, you only gave him 4 drives at Virginia. And you said before that you thought about taking him out after the first half against Florida State. Now, that first half against Florida State was bad. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, you should have 100%. But you did not. And you gave him that support, and then he validated that by coming in with 3 touchdown passes in the second half, winning that game and things like that. And the first thing that you think of the next week is, when can I pull this kid out of the game? Like, what are you doing? Like, what does Malik Rozier, what has he done to engender such a feeling of support? You know what I mean? Like, that seems to be singular to him. And he doesn't have the range. He doesn't have the talent. He doesn't have the ability. And you're seeing teams have schemed up how to stop him. And then Mark Richt has had to truncate the offensive scheme because Malik Rozier's inability to make throws. Case in point, first half, I want to say, I think it was maybe second quarter. Anyways, first half, I believe, against Virginia. 3rd down and forever. You send Jeff Thomas on a go route. They're in cover 2, so you get behind the cornerback and in front of the safety, so you get that cover 2 window up the corner or up the sideline, and he's wide open. He's open by 15 yards. Malik Rozier throws the ball, and it's 10 yards underthrown, so Jeff Thomas tries to throttle down from whatever speed he's running at, 22, 23 miles an hour, which is ridiculously fast, and then he falls because he's going from 7th gear to try to stop, and then literally, I mean, the ball was nowhere close. And the defenders fought each other for the interception, which was gifted to them, and they dropped it. And the radio call for Miami on, the radio station said, oh, well, the pass is incomplete because the receiver slipped. The receiver slipped because the quarterback threw the ball so short because the quarterback couldn't get the ball there. Yet and still, Mark Richt fully supports this guy to play at the expense of the team and at the expense of these games. And it does not make sense. That last interception that Malik Rozier threw at Boston College was, it wasn't the worst I've ever seen, because I saw that one in the bowl game against Wisconsin where he threw directly to the defensive end who was standing 4 yards in front of him. But the point was, everybody knew what the play was. We're sitting on Twitter. I was tweeting and other people were adding me. 3rd down and 9. What are we going to run? Slant, 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 slant. Look, I know that I'm not a football coach. I know that a lot of people who were with me tweeting on, Friday evening were not football coaches. Yet and still, we all to a person, male, female, otherwise, old, young, doesn't matter. Everybody knew that we were running a slant. Guess who else knew that we were running a slant? Boston College. So you drive on that ball, you jump that route, and you get the interception because you know that he's not going to throw the ball long because he does not have the athletic ability. That's like putting me out there and trying to have a 70-yard throw. I mean, do I want to think that I can make that throw? Yes. Can I actually make that throw? Probably not. So you're not going to have me try to make that throw. So you're going to do things where I can do, and make those throws. And it's a problem if you're taking me at my age and athletic ability, which, I have athletic ability, but I was not a scholarship quarterback. I don't have the strongest arm in the world. But if I can make a reasonable comparison to me making a throw and Malik Rozier making a throw in a game, that's a problem. And you see that going on and on and on over and over again. So I still question how Mark Richt is so singularly supportive of Malik Rozier at the expense of everyone else on this roster. You think that Gerald Willis doesn't deserve to have a quarterback with the ability to make plays? You think that John Garvin doesn't deserve that? Shaq Quarterman, Mike Pinckney, Jaquan Johnson, Michael Jackson, these guys, Trajan Bandy, these guys on the other side of the ball who are playing on this awesome, amazing top-tier defense, you think they don't deserve that? You think Jeff Thomas doesn't deserve having better, more catchable balls? And I know that Jeff Thomas has been targeted a million times, but when some of those throws are inaccurate, does it really matter? And a couple of the catches that he's had this season, and you've seen them, are highlight reel catches because he had to adjust and make these great things happen when the ball was not where it needed to be. I don't understand it. And we've seen Miami already lose these games. And honestly, Miami's going to lose another game this year. And I mean, I'm just putting it out there. Do I want that to happen? No. I don't have any evidence based upon the play at the most important position on the field or in general on offense. Because look, if you want to extend that out and say, Cam, you're being too singular about Malik Rozier, fine. Let's talk about the offensive line. Let's talk about the run game, averaging under 3 yards a carry. Let's talk about 2 games where we scored 27 total points. That's 13.5 points per game. Let's talk about all of those kind of things. Let's talk about all of those issues. Let's talk about third downs. Let's talk about 3rd down and 4th down in the Virginia game where Miami goes I formation. And if you run I formation at Miami or have this season, what's the one play that we've run? Fullback dive to Trayon Gray. No, sorry. There was one time, and I asked, and I looked, and I'm trying to go back through the play-by-play. There's one play out of I formation that has not been fullback dive. One, the entire season from lining up in that formation. So you think that the opposition doesn't know what you're going to run there? You don't get it on 3rd down. Okay, cool. We're going to line up in heavy I formation again on 4th down, give it back to Trayon Gray and see what happens. Turnover on downs, boom. There are big problems, and people are overlooking them. And by people, I mean Mark Richt. And changes are not happening, and the result is not what it needs to be. So it's frustrating and it's problematic. And I think that, things need to change for Miami to be successful. I want them to change. I want to be successful. I want to have a 10-game win streak like last year. However, absent any changes, and Mark Richt has come out repeatedly and said that there are not going to be changes, I struggle to see where the product and the result is going to change and improve.
Yeah, and the Jeff Thomas throw in particular, yeah, that was, if you didn't have a rooting interest, a bit comical because I sat here after the game and did instant analysis and took calls, and I was saying that ball needed to be out, up the field, down the sideline,
all the way to the end zone,
the back corner of the end zone.
Brody, let him go get it. God.
Yeah, Jeff Thomas was like, oh, I got to get back there.
Right. I mean, like I said, yeah, it's the Randy Moss. Hey, chuck it up there, dog. Just throw it and let him go run. I mean, he's a thoroughbred horse. And you put him outside finally, so he's playing Z receiver, gets up the sideline, and yet chuck it. Go, send it, and I will go get that ball. But then you throw it. I mean, it's just, I just don't. The best Malik Rozier we ever saw was 3 years ago tonight at Duke, his very first start in the game with Cornelder's iconic return, where Miami should have won anyway before that because the referees were terrible and called an ACC record 23 penalties against Miami and very many phantom calls and things like that. And that was the high watermark, honestly, for Malik Rozier. Past that, is never been that good of a performance since then. And I mean, yeah, he'll make a throw here and there, but man, it handicaps the team. And the points that I was making last year have been exacerbated because now that L column has 3 in there already in the regular season with the games to go. Last year, the 3 in the L column came at the end of the season. So at this point, we were still undefeated. Okay, cool. Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. But it just, yeah, I don't know. And, Mark Richt is quintupling down. He did it on the radio. He's done it in press conferences. He's done it media availabilities and teleconferences and things like that. He's saying that lineup changes are probably not going to change. Well, definitely not going to change because he keeps continuing to name Malik Rozier the starting quarterback for every week and saying that the scheme is not going to change because we're running plays that have worked for 30 years. Well, Mark, if everybody knows that it's going to be inside zone, that play is not going to work. If everybody knows it's going to be a slant, that play is not going to work. So please do something different. Please do something different because insanity is defined as doing the same thing, expecting the result to change. And I feel like you're driving me insane, Mark Richt. So don't do that. Change something, please.
We've got Cam Underwood on the line from State of the U. Miami taking on Duke. It's an ESPN2 game, 7 o'clock Eastern time on Saturday night. And yes, Pitt, Virginia. That right now is the game of the year in the Coastal Division in the ACC. The winner of that game, don't look at the overall records, especially in the case of Pitt. They have lost 4 games. They have been annihilated by the likes of Penn State, Notre Dame, and Central Florida outside the conference. That doesn't mean anything. They have 1 loss in the ACC. Those 2 teams are playing for control of the division. Inexplicably, that's the way it is. First week of November, none of us projected that. The thing I will say, Cam, to get away from that particular subject matter for Miami and going to the defense is the Virginia game. Okay, you understand. I'm watching these just for the joy of watching football and the analysis and, no rooting interest.
Fair.
The Virginia game, sloppy game, just an ugly game. Boston College, those first 3 drives, they were executing to a T. They looked good. They looked sharp. And sure, the Miami defense thwarted them the rest of the game, but I didn't know if that was so much BC doing their typical, okay, we got a 1-2 score lead, 10 to 14 points the rest of the game, we're going to pack it in, or that was Miami just playing better on defense. It was probably some combination, but the Miami defense did not look good those first 3 drives of the game.
Yeah, I mean, the first 3 drives, they did come out touchdown, field goal, 17 points on the first 3 drives. But after that, it was punt, 3 and out, punt, a field goal on a 9-yard drive. So that was after an interception, a touchdown on a 1-play drive after the second interception, which was a 14-yard play. They threw their own interception, field goal, punt, and then half. Miami did what they needed to do after the first, you make adjustments and you figure out, okay, cool, we're going to, lock things down. So yeah, the early game, performance of the defense did not meet estimation, but Manny Diaz has been very good at making adjustments as games have gone on in his tenure here. So he was able to do that. So yeah, I'm still very pleased with the defense, and I'm not going to really harp on them or anything. Like, could it have been better? Yes. Obviously you want to pitch a shutout every day. That didn't happen, but you didn't get any real support from the offense either, so I mean, there were times, like I said, 1st and goal on the 9-yard line to start the 4th quarter, Miami comes away with 0 points when you're down by 2 scores and things like that. So I mean, there could have been other things, like if Miami scores there and then gets a 3 and out or gets a stop and gets the ball back, now you're talking about your 6-point game, 27-21 going in. So I mean, yeah, the defense was not perfect, but the defense did well, I do believe. Obviously, it could have been better. Giving up 149 yards to A.J. Dillon was not great, definitely. And then, his backup had 7 carries for 41 as well, because, they have 2 250-pound running backs on their team. So between those 2 guys, they had 190 yards. So, yeah, that was definitely not something that met my estimation of goodness, of greatness from Miami's defense. But overall, I'm still very pleased with the defense. And even if you want to say that Miami's defense cost them this game, that makes 1 for the year. So, fine. And, going undefeated is very hard. So even if that was the 1 loss, all right. But yeah, I'm still very pleased with the defense. I think that everybody's playing hard. I think that, we're seeing progression from guys that we needed to see progression from. Scott Patchen, finally healthy, is a 2nd-team defensive end now. I already named a bunch of starters, Shaq Quarterman, Michael Pinckney. Romeo Finley has been a revelation at the striker position. John Garvin, Gerald Willis III, who's going to be, a high 2nd, maybe 1st-round draft pick now. Joe Jackson, Pat Bethel, even, other guys in the secondary, Trajan Bandy, Jaquan Johnson, Michael Jackson, all kinds of guys. So, Miami's defense has really, stepped up to the task this year, and they're doing well. So yeah, it did let down a little bit early on in the game, but I don't think that it really cost Miami the game. But even if you want to make the statement that it did, that's one game out of the season, and costing Miami a game was giving up 17 points in the first quarter or the first half against a team that Miami should have beaten. So improvement can be seen everywhere.
Cam Underwood joining us from State of the U, the best in Miami football coverage. You got to join him and the rest of the crew right there as the Canes try to salvage the season coming up this Saturday night against Duke. Cam, before we let you go, I would like to get a recruiting update. And it did come to mind when you mentioned the interception on the slant that had they done their scouting, they also should have known that kid jumps on those routes. He leads the nation in interceptions. I believe that was a Hamp Cheevers interception from Boston College, and he is tied for the nation's lead in interceptions. So that's what he does.
I mean, yeah, but what are you going to do? You don't have the offensive line to block long enough to do a slant and go, a sluggo route. You're not going to throw a 9, a vertical route, or a post, whatever number 8, or a flag for a 7. You're not going to throw those long vertical routes because you can't necessarily block, especially on a third down where you already have seen Zach Allen and I forget the name of the other defensive end for Boston College who really, owned the night.
Wyatt Ray.
Why exactly? Right. So both of those guys are getting up the field in pass rush, and things like that. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say that 100% they didn't know that, Hamp Cheevers likes to jump slants, but again, when you don't have a quarterback with the ability to make different throws, then you kind of have to throw what he can throw and get what you get. And we threw what he could throw and got what we got.
All right, so you do have some good news and some not so good news from the recruiting front over the last few weeks. So that being your thing, and people love recruiting talk, so we'll finish with that.
Yeah, and I appreciate the time. I know you got a couple other people who are going to come on quickly. So if you want a full, 5,000 words on recruiting, I wrote this month's recruiting radar, or the class breakdown. Got it in just under the radar right on Halloween on the 31st. So that's up on stateoftheu.com. 2 quick things. Number one, Cornelius Nunn, who's a safety out of Miami Palmetto High School. He completed his flip from Syracuse to Miami by committing to Miami a couple of weeks ago. So that was pretty awesome. He's a little underrated right now as a 3-star, but he's fast and he's physical. He's exactly what Miami looks for in the defensive secondary. So he's a guy who, he's probably not going to be a freshman All-American in his first year, but he will definitely be, or has the potential to be a solid player with Miami moving forward. That's the good news. The bad news is that Braylon Ingraham, who is a strong side defensive end / maybe a 4-3 defensive tackle, a penetrating tackle, he was a long time Miami lean, had even reportedly been telling Miami for a couple of months that he was going to be committing to Miami on his mother's birthday, which was the October 23rd was his commitment date. But he took a late visit to Alabama, and you know how those go. So he decided to commit to Alabama instead. And that kind of changes things because, if you get Ingraham in this class, you have 4 defensive tackles with, depth and talent. And obviously Miami needs depth and talent at that position. So, that's a positive if you get him, but we didn't. So now you're kind of back to the drawing board because Miami has 3 defensive tackles, one, and I don't even know which one is necessarily going to step in and play. You got Jason Munoz from St. Thomas Aquinas. You got Jalar Hawley from Buford, Georgia, and Stephen Blissett from Poly Prep in Brooklyn, New York, who's having a monster season, by the way. He's averaging like 10 yards a carry as a running back, and he has like 40 tackles and 6 sacks or something like that. So he's a good player, but I'm not sure any of those guys step in day one at Miami. But if you have Ingraham, who's a little bit bigger and a little bit more talented, maybe he can be in that rotation as well, but Ingraham's not coming. So, I talked about what some of the chatter is about where Miami can look at defensive end. Defensive tackle in the rest of this class. And that is a position where Miami has struggled to recruit and a team against which Miami has struggled to recruit, Alabama, that being. And then there's a bunch of other information, like I said, this month's class breakdown. So I'm not going to take up any more of your time, but 5,000 words up there. And then we got more football stuff and basketball seasons starting up here as well. So we have our player profiles and coach previews and a whole season and game previews and all these kind of things about basketball as well. So, yeah, football obviously on this channel is the number one focus, but we do much more than just football over at stateoftheu.com. So if you're a Miami Hurricanes fan or if you're a hater and want to just kind of come in the comments and hate away, because we have plenty of those as well. What's up? Was his name Jay Knoll, who's always in our comments, who's a Florida State fan. Awesome, cool. But yeah, we try to do a lot of different things and bring you a lot of different content over at stateoftheu.com. So check it out.
So Cam, I try to keep you on here for like hours most of the time, but yeah, we've got a few other guests.
No worries.
Because of my master scheduling prowess, this is what we're left with. So I will let you get on with your Halloween night, and then I will apologize to my two guests, and I will try to figure out a better way to do this. But Cam, we appreciate the time as always, and you're always welcome to come on Mark Rogers TV, of course.
Yeah, definitely. So you guys have a great Halloween, Steve and Claire. I'm sure that you guys will do great work. So I'll see you guys around.
Thanks, Cam. That is Cam Underwood, of course. He gave you the rundown at State of the U.